This module talks about the causes of death, including how it is classified internationally, also referred to as the ICD, the historical development of this international classification of causes of death, and details in particular points from the 9th and 10th revision of the ICD. Analyzing mortality data by causes of death is an important aspect of study. Identification of causes medically and examining causes of death will help public health persons implement programs necessary to reduce mortality. For its study, certain important terms need to be understood and defined, such as the term disease, in order to understand causes of death. The ICD is a useful standard of classification of causes of death because it facilitates comparisons across countries, and the World Health Organization prepares a manual on it. The first development of a rudimentary form of classification of causes of death is considered to have been by John Grant in the 17th century, after which many other developments took place, and what we work with on the international level is the ICD. The 9th and 10th revisions are discussed in more detail in the module, and it is important to know that the 11th revision is also underway.
I am Dr. C.P. Prakasham, retired professor from International Institute for Population Sciences, Mumbai. Module 7, Causes of Death, International Classification, ICD. In this module, we will learn about classification of cause of death, ICD, historical development of ICD, 9th revision of ICD, 10th revision of ICD. Causes of death statistics is an important component in mortality studies. Identification of cause of death medically and examining the causes of death will help public health personnel to implement suitable public health programs to reduce mortality. It is evident that death will occur either with prolonged disease or injury, or by accident, or altogether. Therefore, examining the cause of death statistics is important in mortality studies. There is a need to define disease to understand cause of death. Disease is defined as a condition of the body or some part of organ or the body in which its functions are disrupted or deranged. There is a lot of variation in definition of disease according to the etiologist, sociologist, demographer, medical persons. Hence, need for uniform code and classification of cause of death arise. International Classification of Disease and Causes of Death, ICD statistics, is a system of classification needed where the disease can be grouped to certain categories or certain characteristics which facilitates for comparison. Classification of cause of death. World Health Organization prepares a manual on international statistical classification of disease, injury and cause of death. The existing international statistics classification of disease, injuries and causes of death, ICD, was formerly known as the International Statistical Nomenclature of Disease, Injuries and Causes of Death. It was originally a classification and code system for causes of death only, intended to facilitate the compiling mortality statistics from the raw material of death certificates. Historical development of ICD. During 17th century, John Grant, in his study of bills of mortality, arranged diseases in an alphabetical order. Later, with the rapid advancement of medical science, the identification of disease changes. The first attempt in modern times of scientific classification was made by Francisco Bossuet de Lexores, 1710-1777, known as Sauvages. He published a comprehensive report under the title Nosologica Methodic. Later, after a half decade, in 1855, William Farr, Registrar General of England and Wales, worked to achieve a better classification. He has suggested the principle of classifying diseases by anatomical site. Based on the principles adopted by Farr, Dr. Jacques Bertrand developed classification considering general diseases and these located to a particular organs or anatomical site. Bertillon, in his classification, included three types of classifications. The first is an abridged classification of 44 titles. The second classification is of 99 and the third of 161 titles. This list was adopted by the International Statistical Institute and became known as the International List of Cause of Death. The American Public Health Association in October 1987 recommended the use of the list in the US, Canada and Mexico and suggested its decennial revision, and the proposal was adopted by the French government, which handed the International Commission for Decennial Revision of the International List of Death 1900 to 1948. WHO undertook the responsibility for the revision of the list and presented the 6th revision in July 1948, which was approved and published in 2 volumes. 9th revision and the 10th revision, which is the latest revision, also in 2 volumes, was prepared by the WHO and are adopted by the World Health Assembly. 9th revision and 10th revision. The 9th revision, the diseases are arranged according to their principal anatomical site with special section for mental disease, complications of pregnancy and childbirth, certain diseases of early infancy and senility and ill-defined conditions, including categories of symptomatic conditions to which a specific diagnosis has not been attributed. The last section provides a dual classification of injury according to the external cause, nature of injury such as puncture, burn, open wound, etc. There is a supplementary classification known as Y classification, which covers the specific conditions and examination without sickness. 3-digit classification. In the 9th revision, the diseases have been classified by using 3-digit classifications. The detailed list, consisting of a list of 671 categories of diseases and morbid conditions, 182 categories of external causes of injury and 187 categories of injuries according to the nature of the lesion. In the 3-digit code, the first 2 digits denote significant groups and the 3rd digit separates specific disease entities or a classification of diseases by site. There is a dual system of classification of injuries by nature prefixed by N and by external causes prefixed by E. To have further information regarding etiologic or manifestation of the diseases, the 4th disease has been classified under 17 categories, 9th revision. The categories are as follows: infectious and parasitic diseases, neoplasma, endocrine, nutritional, metabolic diseases and immunity diseases, diseases of blood and blood forming organs, mental disorders, diseases of nervous system and sense organs, diseases of the circulatory system, diseases of the respiratory system, diseases of the digestive system, diseases of genito-urinary system, complications of pregnancy, childbirth and the puerperium, diseases of the skin and substantious tissues, diseases of the musculoskeletal system and conjunctive tissues, congenital anomalies, certain conditions originating the perinatal period, symptoms, signs and ill-defined conditions, injury and poison. Each of the above categories have been divided into subsections. For example, diseases of the circulatory system are divided into subsections 390 to 392, acute rheumatic fever 393-398, chronic rheumatic heart disease, etc. and so on. Each of the above subsections has a listing of 3 disease categories. For example, the subsection of 390-392 have 390 rheumatic fever without mentioning of heart involvement, 391 rheumatic fever with heart involvement, 392 rheumatic cholera and so on. Each of the above 3 digit categories have been further subdivided into a decimal code as 390 rheumatic fever with heart involvement, 391.0 acute rheumatic pericarditis, 392.1 acute rheumatic endocarditis, etc. and so on. Recommendations procedure for tabulation. In the 9th revision, the following tabulation procedures have been suggested. List A, list of 150 causes for tabulation of morbidity and mortality. List B, list of 50 causes for tabulation of mortality. List C, list of 70 causes for tabulation of morbidity. List D, list of 300 causes for tabulation of hospital morbidity. List P, list of 100 causes for tabulation of perinatal morbidity and mortality. The International Conference for the 9th revision was held in February 1978, changed the basic classification of diseases, added with underlying causes and manifestation causes by putting symbol as plus and star respectively. In some cases, N code being deleted, further some causes have been coded with 5 digits. 10th revision. The 10th revision of International Statistical Classification of Diseases and Related Health Problems is the latest, came into effect on January 1st, 1993. The 10th revision was the use of an alphanumeric coding scheme of 1 letter followed by 3 numbers at the 4 characteristics level. Of the 26 available letters, 25 had been used, the letter U being left vacant. Further, addition and changes for the possibility of interim classification to solve difficulties arising at the national and international level between revisions. ICD-10 diseases have been classified under 21 categories as follows. Certain infectious and parasitic diseases A00-B99, neoplasma C00-D48, diseases of the blood and blood forming organs and certain disorders involving the immunity mechanism D50-D89, endocrine, nutritional and metabolic diseases E00-E90. Mental and behavioral disorder F00-F99. Diseases of the nervous system G00-G99. Diseases of the eye and adnexia H00-H59. Diseases of the ear and menstrual process H60-H95. Diseases of the circulatory system I00-I99. Diseases of the respiratory system J00-J99. Diseases of the digestive system K00-K93. Diseases of the skin and subcutaneous tissues L00-L99. Diseases of the musculoskeletal system and connective tissues M00-M99. Diseases of the genitourinary system N00-N99. Pregnancy, childbirth and puerperium O00-O99. Certain conditions are originating in the perinatal period P00, P96. Congenital malformation, deformation and chromosomal abnormalities Q00, Q99. Symptoms, signs, abnormal clinical and laboratory findings not elsewhere classified R00-R99. Injuries, poisoning and certain other consequences of external causes S00-T88. Factors influencing health status and contact with health services Z00, Z99. Each of above sections has a listing of further divisions. For example, the subsection of A00-A09 is subdivided into A00-A09 intestinal infectious diseases, A00 cholera, A01 typhoid and paratyphoid fever, A02 other salmonellal infections, A09 diarrhea and gastroenteritis of presumed infections origin. Further, each is divided into a decimal digit code A01 typhoid and paratyphoid fever, A01.0 typhoid fever infections due to salmonella form, A01.1 paratyphoid fever A, A01.2 paratyphoid fever B, A01.3 paratyphoid fever C, A01.4 paratyphoid fever unspecified infection due to salmonellal parasitic nature. The unused U code U00-U49 are to be used for provisional assignment of new diseases of uncertain categories. Code U50-U99 is to be used for research, namely when testing an alternative subclassifications for a specific project. ICD-10 consists of 3 volumes. Volume 1 contains the reports of the international conferences for the 10th revision, the classification itself at the 3 and 4 characteristic level, the classification of morphology of neoplasma, special tabulation, list for mortality and morbidity, definitions and the nomenclature regulations. Volume 2 is instructions manual and volume 3 contains alphabetical index. Questions. Define disease to understand cause of death. Describe the historical note of development of ICD. Describe 3-digit classification in 9th revision of ICD. Describe in brief 10th revision of ICD. Fill in the blanks given below. References are important for this module.
of Diseases, or ICD. ICD is a common language used all over the world by doctors, nurses, policymakers, researchers, and many others to classify diseases and conditions so they have the best possible picture of everyone's health. Around the world, more than 100 countries use ICD to record the reasons people die, to monitor the health of their populations, and to help make financing decisions about their health systems. The world needs better health data, and ICD is delivering it. It's another way the World Health Organization is building a healthier world.